dyslexia specialist, sorry, in 2015 as God was sending her on a path to helping students with dyslexia. She and her 8 part-time tutors now provide Orton-Gillingham-based tutoring services to more than 50 students in both Madison and Delaware counties. She has been working with the private schools in Madison County, including Cross Street Christian School, to help identify students who may have dyslexia and provide specialized training and tutoring services to those students. So I know this is something that we're dealing with more and more. A higher percentage of our students are coming in with deficits. And so I just welcome Susan. I'm so thankful that you were willing to come, and she changed her schedule, and you know, this is a God thing. So I'm just really thankful. Sure. We welcome you, Susan.
Thank you. While I'm kind of doing a little introduction here, I'm going to send you guys around some name tags. So if you could write your name, put it on your shirt. And also, it would really help me if everybody could move up here to the center, because we're going to do a dyslexia simulation, and it's going to be a lot easier if everybody is sitting up closer. So if everybody could come up, that would be great. And then I'm going to start passing that around. No, actually, it's great if you're split, kind of half and half evenly, just up towards the front. Okay. That'd be awesome.
Is this close enough, or do you want up more?
No, that's fine, as long as you're all kind of grouped together. Good morning. As Nicole said, I'm Susan Lee, and I'm really happy to be here with all of you today. So just a little bit more about me as you guys pass things around there. So I don't know how many of you know much about dyslexia. I knew nothing about it until a few years ago. I've been a speech pathologist for over 20 years, worked many of those years in the public schools, and a few actually in a private school for a public school, and did not really know anything about dyslexia. I always thought it was a really rare reading disability. It didn't have anything to do with what I did. But it was actually God that sent me down this path. So it's really awesome for me to talk to a bunch of teachers who believe in God and believe in Jesus, and I love to do that. My kids actually go to Liberty Christian School in Anderson. They've been there since preschool. That was a really important thing for us, was to have them at a school where they could also learn about Jesus. And so, sorry, I'm a little out of breath, and a little nervous too, because this is like the biggest group I think I've talked to. So usually I talk in the library to this little, 10, 15 people at the most. But I do appreciate you guys having me here today. And so my story, as far as how I got into dyslexia, so I actually have tried and failed to start a private practice about 3 times. In the past, it was always with just speech therapy. And in the county that I live in, the demographics there are lower income typically, and they typically want to use their health insurance, which I don't blame them, to get their services. I want to use mine too. But taking health insurance as a small independent provider, is a very daunting and difficult task because you have to like sign up with all these different insurance companies, and it's just a nightmare. So I had tried to do, private practice with just private pay, out-of-pocket pay, and I failed 3 times. And again, I always had that passion that I wanted to do that because I think God placed that in my heart, but it wasn't his time. Just like your gal earlier was talking about, wherever she is. And so I just continued working for other people, and have had a whole lot of jobs because my husband actually has some mental health issues and has been in and out of jobs, and so I would be home with my kids and working part-time, and then he'd lose his job, and then, we need health insurance, so then I'd go get a full-time job. Thankfully, God sent me into a path and a career that I was able to do that. But I kept wondering, why have I been through so many jobs? Why can't I just stay at one job? But now, looking back, every single job I had, I learned a skill or skills that I need in what I'm doing now. So God put me on that path for a very specific purpose. So what ended up happening was, it was I quit my job at the schools in 2015. At the end of the school year, I thought, okay, I've got the summer, I've got my summer pay, I'm going to get my business up and going. It took forever for me to get my my corporation set up, and by the time I did, summer was almost over. So I have no more income coming in. I have to have a job. A friend of mine at church actually saw a posting. The lady who'd been at the Alexandrian Community Schools left after 12 years, just up and left, moved to Florida. And they needed somebody like right away, so to do speech. So I went up there, they hired me, which was really awesome. Initially, I thought I was going to stay there. I thought, I love this, it's great, I'm going to stay here. But I still had this little tug at my heart that, this is not where you're supposed to be. But I did need to be there for that year because it was actually a little girl there who was at the Catholic school in Ellick. She had come from a Catholic school in Elwood that had closed, and the special ed coordinator said that she had had an IEP or an ISP at the other school for language, and she came there, she'd been there like a year, the mom forgot to tell anybody or didn't tell anybody or whatever. And so even though it really wasn't the school's fault because they didn't know, she said, we really need to pick her up. We need to try and find something we can pick her up for. I was like, okay. So I did my normal speech and language testing. Everything was average. And so then I talked to the teacher, and she said, her spelling is horrible. I said, okay, well, that's not something I've ever done a whole lot about, but okay. So I went ahead and gave her this phonological processing assessment, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later for those of you who don't know what that is. And she bombed it. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I actually had another colleague that I'd worked with prior tell me, hey, look into this program. It's called the Barton Reading and Spelling System, which is what we use to tutor with now. Again, I'll talk more about that later. But I ordered the first level. I started it with her. It was amazing. She took off, made so much progress, and I thought, wow, this is what I need to do. So then I actually went that summer to get trained as a dyslexia consultant, and since then, it's just been a whirlwind of definitely not in my power, but all in God's, because I cannot do this on my own. But as Nicole told you, we have 50 students that we're tutoring now, and every day we can see the change in their lives and their confidence and their self-esteem, and it's just amazing the difference that the right kind of instruction makes for these kids. So, and as Nicole said, this whole thing, me being here today, was definitely God, because it wasn't planned. I was working with Marta Munoz over there with some students at Cross Street, and she said, hey, you should come talk to our conference, but I think it's booked up this year, but I'll let her know about you. And I was like, sure, great. And then I got a call the next week, but hey, can you come next week? I was like, okay, sure, I will figure it out because I'm supposed to be here. So anyway, I hope you guys all enjoy what I have to say today. The one paper that I sent around is for questions. So as you think of things, in order to try and get done in a timely manner, I try to, if you think of a question, just jot it down. I'm happy to stay after and talk, or we can chat at lunch as well. But if there's a burning question that you're like, I just can't go on until I know the answer, then go ahead and raise your hand. I'm happy to answer it, but I just don't want to get into a lot of big discussions about what do I do about this kid, what do I do about this kid, just so we can keep things moving. But I'm happy to answer all of those questions at lunch, after we're done, or by email if you want to put it on your form. I'll send you an email in the next couple weeks. Also, if you want a certificate for today, go ahead and mark that on there, and I'll send that out as well by email. I don't necessarily need phone number and address, that's on there, but make sure you give me your email so I can send that stuff to you. Okay, so does everybody has a name tag on? No, not yet? Still working on that? Okay. Let me explain a little bit about what we're going to do while we're finishing that up. We are actually going to do what's called a dyslexia simulation. I don't know if any of you have ever done that before. Okay, so that's awesome. Nobody's done it. And there's a few different ones. There is one that the state of Indiana Dyslexia Association does. I actually prefer this one. This one comes out of California Dyslexia Association. And so thanks to them for this program, because I will promise you that it will open your eyes to a whole lot of things. And that's why I love doing this. I told Nicole, I think I can do just my couple hours of talk, but it just makes so much more difference when you do the simulation. So I'm glad that we have time to do that today. So what we're going to do first is pass around some papers, but we're still doing name tags. So, I'm trying to think. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. This will save us some time later. We'll go ahead and pass out. These are the packets for later, and these are some information about my business, and then also there's warning signs for dyslexia on the back. But please don't look into that too much, because it might affect the simulation. So just for time's sake, though, we'll go ahead and pass those out, and then. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass out another set of papers. Please do not open these yet. Please, please, on the honor system. Just like you tell your students, right? Don't uncover the test. Advance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 10, 11, 12. Okay, one of these I have 13 of. I think it's. Okay, those go over here. These go over here. I gotta be sure I got enough for every side. Don't open it. Is it okay if I take this microphone off of here and hold it? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read the introduction for this while we're still doing name tags here. And then we'll probably go ahead and get started. Hopefully we got enough name tags I can bug people. So the purpose of this simulation is to learn how difficulty with decoding affects comprehension. Individuals with dyslexia have difficulty with decoding or reading individual words. They may be able to decode some words, but usually struggle with enough words that it impacts their ability to read fluently and gain comprehension. Depending on the severity of their dyslexia, the individual will struggle with a few words to most words in a grade level passage. Having to slow down to try to decode words in a passage can make it difficult to read with enough fluency to gain full comprehension. The individual with dyslexia may have to do a lot of rereading, and they often continue to struggle with some of the same words they had possibly figured out when they had read that portion of text the first time. It can make reading very laborious and cause frustration and anxiety when required to read. This can also lead the individual with dyslexia to guess at words, skip words, or substitute words they think make sense for the sentence. It can also make them apprehensive or resistant to read, which can sometimes be translated by others as a behavior problem. All right, so you guys each have an article in front of you. I am going to give you about 2 minutes to read that article. Hang on just a second. So whenever I start the timer, go ahead and start reading, and then please know I'm going to ask you some comprehension questions when you're done, okay? Go ahead and start. I just realized I goofed. Hang on a second. I got myself confused. You guys need this one first. No, wait. Nope, over here needs this one. And I don't have enough copies of that one. I got myself confused. Okay. So can anybody run and make a few copies for me of this one? Do you mind if I grab that for me for a second? Can you go make some copies for me? I need like 13 more of that one. Or 12 more, 12, 13, something like that. Sorry about that. Okay, take the one I just handed you over here, and then you guys get the one over here. And go ahead and read that. And by the way, I only gave you the first page, so if it feels like it's not complete, that's why. Okay, so go ahead and stop. I'm going to ask you guys some questions. So what is the main topic of the article, Jennifer? Yes, very good. According to the article, list some reasons sleep can help you. Diane?
You can think better.
Okay, very good. Janelle?
Mine was not on sleep.
What's that?
Mine was not on sleep.
Yours was not on sleep?
No. Oh, I didn't get
Did I give you guys, oh my gosh, I gave you guys the wrong thing again.
Yeah, I
So
didn't get
sorry.
either, so.
Okay, hang on a second. This is what happens whenever I didn't know about this ahead of time. It was kind of a last minute putting all this back together. I haven't done it for a little while. Just a second. Okay, hang on a second. Let me have those. Oh.
The method is they see things backwards.
guys got the sleep one though, right? Yeah. Okay. Goodness sakes. Aha. Yes. So they need that one, and I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to read that. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
We'll get this together. There's a lot of papers, so okay, so that's, and she wants to copy. Oh, I think I gave her the wrong one to copy too. I'm sure I did. I need her to copy this one.
The one that you gave for me was not on sleep. It was on.
Yeah, I know. I gave you the wrong one. You mean this one isn't now?
No, the first one that you took from me. That one.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. She copied it. You guys go ahead and read that one because they've already read it. I gave you the wrong one to copy.
How many do you need?
Like 13.
13 of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and I'll ask them some questions over here since they read it a little bit before. And as we're going to talk a little bit later about ADD and ADHD as well, I have some of that, so you have to forgive me because sometimes I'm pretty scattered. Okay, so tell me some reasons sleep can help you. We had one. Lisa?
Increases memory.
Memory. Very good. Let's have Marta tell me another one. How can sleep help you? She's reading over there. Marta, are you paying attention?
I am. I am paying attention.
By the way, I'm going to be a little mean today, so you'll have to forgive me for that too.
I guess it helps those who are recovering from brain injuries.
Okay, very good. So list some reasons lack of sleep can harm you. Anybody over here have any that has read enough to know?
That's why teenagers can't remember anything.
True, yes. All right. So how did knowing you would be asked comprehension questions affect how you read the article? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, you went back and scanned, Lisa?
I would say I paid attention to some of the key words that I thought would be.
Yes, very good. How about you guys over here? Any thoughts about that? How did knowing that you were going to be asked questions about it change how you read it?
Makes me not scared.
Makes you not skim it. Yes, it makes you pay attention. Thank you so much. What reading strategies did you use? Anybody think of any reading strategies that you used while you were reading it? Oh, actually, those are the wrong ones. Rereading, I think we already said, right? Anybody else? Keep looking for keywords, anything else? Okay, very good. Would you have read it differently if you didn't have to answer comprehension questions? You said you would have skimmed it, right? Anybody else? Well, you just kind of skimmed it through and not really read it as carefully. Okay, very good. So, now we need the rest of our second article, which hopefully is coming. I'll go ahead, actually I'll read this little part here. I'm also not used to doing this with a microphone. Although I've been on stage my whole life doing plays and musicals, but this is different. So it's important to note that individuals with dyslexia see print exactly like an individual without dyslexia sees it. They do not see letters or words backwards. letters out of order or the wrong letters. So in this next article, we've changed some of the letters to force the fluent reader to pay attention to decoding most of the text. So I'm going to go ahead and pass out some of these. I don't know if you guys can share for now until she brings, okay. There should be enough for every 2 people to have one.
Is it dyslexia?
No, this is the, so I gave you guys that too. I am so confused. Let me see what I gave. What else did I give? Yeah, keep that dyslexia in this one for later. Once you guys, hang on until you get all of those and I'll start the timer. Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and read it because I hate to wait any longer. So just do the best you can. If you don't read it, I won't make you answer any questions. All right, go ahead and start. And then hopefully she'll get here with those. Here they come. You'll see why. I got the first separation confused with the next one. All right, so hopefully everybody got time to read a little bit of that to kind of get the feeling of it. So what is the main topic of the article? Stress in the brain, very good. How may stress have negative effects on you?
Sap your strength and energy.
Okay.
Alter your brain cells, your brain function.
Very good. Anybody else? Okay, depression. Good, you guys did good. What did researchers learn from the research they conducted on animals? Did anybody get there? No? Okay, you got very good, Janelle. She's our star student for today. She read that really well. All right, so how did knowing that you would be asked comprehension questions affect how you read the article? How you read the article?
I didn't even pay attention because I was too focused on trying to understand what I was reading.
Right, so you couldn't even really think about trying to retain any of that for questions, just trying to figure it out. Anybody else? Yeah.
Again, looking for keywords.
Yes, looking for keywords, but they were a little harder to find this time, right? Anybody else have any thoughts about that? Reading strategies. Any other reading strategies anybody used?
Skipping and going.
Yes, you ended up skipping some words, didn't you? Because you didn't know what they were and try to figure out the context. That's what our kids with dyslexia do all the time because they have no idea what a lot of the words are. So they're just like, okay, I'll just keep going. Anybody else? So were you able to read the two articles at the same rate? No. Why not? Anybody have any insight into that?
You have to try to decipher the words.
Right. You're deciphering the words, so did it take you longer or shorter to read the second one? Much longer, right? And again, here's our kiddos who aren't reading so well. We got to give them a lot of extra time because it's going to take them a lot longer to figure out those words. What reading decoding strategies and skills did you use or use differently in article number 2 as compared to article number 1? Maybe think of different. You skipped words. We already talked about that, right?
Well, you had to try several letters to see what made sense.
Very good. Anybody else?
I was trying to flip words to see if they make sense backwards.
Oh, good. Yeah. So thinking about what in the world is wrong with this word? How can I fix it? And again, now our kiddos with dyslexia do not see things backwards, but they do see the letters flipped often and transposed. And so for them, they're probably going, I wonder if that were flipped, would it say something different? Because I have no idea what it says. What would it have been like if you didn't have these reading and decoding skills? Like if you didn't have your ability to read and you were trying to read that article, would it have been a lot worse?
It's just like a foreign language.
Yes, like a foreign language, exactly. So how difficult was it for you to answer the questions for the second article? Very difficult. And why does anybody have any insight as to why that was?
You weren't even sure about the material anyway.
Right, yeah, you weren't even sure what you read, right? And these are our kids every single day. They have no idea what they read, and then we're expecting them to answer comprehension questions over it. So obviously, they're not going to do well. And how much more difficult would it have been if the key to which letters were changed was not supplied for you? And our kids don't get a key, do they? Because we don't know what, a lot of times we haven't even identified what their problem is, so how can we give them a key? How much would you like to read if reading was always as challenging as the second article? You wouldn't. You'd hate it. And that's what most of these kids go through is they hate to read, but they're forced to read every single day. And a lot of them call school torture.
I know you wanted us to say about questions, but I really have to ask.
Oh, no, you're fine. And especially, I'm sorry, I didn't really clarify. In this part, it's totally fine. We're having a discussion. I was talking about when I'm doing my talk later, so yes.
That I'm understanding,
Yep.
I'm feeling like right now my brain is challenged. Is this how they are seeing?
No, that's what I read a little bit ago. That is not how they see the words. Every child with dyslexia. This is just to make you feel like how they feel when they're trying to read. But every child with dyslexia sees and reads differently. So no, this is not what they would be seeing. It's just helping a typical reader feel how these kids feel. And some of you may have struggled learning to read yourselves, and so you may already know how that feels. And that these simulations are going to be extremely difficult for you, so just bear with me. All right, so that was our first one. Oh, I need to hand out the journal. Just a second. Okay, so what is coming around now is a reflections journal. So just after each, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time to do this because we need to get moving on, but on your break, hopefully you can go back and fill in things. But after each simulation, if you want to jot down a few thoughts about how this made you feel, or what insights you had from it, that'll be helpful because, you know, you do this and you're like, wow, this is amazing, and then you go back to school and you forget a lot of it. So it's nice to have that to refer back to go, oh yeah, that's right, I remember that now. So it has some questions on it. You don't have to answer any of the questions. These are just for you. If you want to answer some of the questions, you can, but just to jot down, you know, what your thoughts were about that, or how it made you feel. So I'll give you a minute to do that. And while we're doing that, I'm going to pass around the next one, so don't open the next one. Oh, actually, never mind. You have to pass out on the next one. You actually don't have anything to pass out on the next one. But you are going to need your paper and your pen for the next one. Does everybody have paper and a pen? Okay, good. Okay, if you're not finished writing, you can go ahead and keep writing, but I'm going to read this next one. So in this simulation, participants will experience one way dyslexia can affect writing. Individuals with dyslexia often need more time to process, slowing down to think about what they're writing. When not given enough time, it can affect their ability to produce complete, coherent sentences. It can also affect their handwriting, making it sloppy or illegible or inconsistent letter formation and size. So I want you guys to get out your paper and your pen. I'm going to be dictating some sentences that I need you to write. And I want you to put your writing implement, your pen or your pencil or whatever you have, in your non-dominant hand, please. Your non-dominant hand. And then I want you to try to write these sentences. Now, if handwriting is a huge challenge for you, then be honest and feel free to use your dominant hand if you like this is going to be terrible. But for most of you, you can use your non-dominant hand if your handwriting is not a challenge. All right, so here's the first sentence. Ben went to the store for milk. I'm going to put this down. I think you guys can hear me. I'm loud. I need to walk around. Oh, that's pretty nice there. Oh my gosh, Jennifer, you need to do that better. You need to take some more time. Oh wow, Leona, you are a star student today. That's really neat. Okay, here's the next one. Peter studied for his science test. Peter studied for his science test. Oh, Karen, I can't even read that. You need to do a better job. I need you to work harder. All right, here's the next one. Jim asked, "Where is my pencil?" Jim asked, "Where is my pencil?" Wow. You got some nice writing there, but you're on one behind. I don't know how you're going to catch up with us.
I don't either, so just keep on going.
Hey, here's the last one. Number 4. Given a list of 1 or 2 syllable second grade words containing short vowels, Debbie will, without prompting, be able to decode those words with 90% accuracy.
What?
Oh my gosh. You guys are way behind up here. Come on, catch up. Speed up. We got science and math still to do today. Come on, guys. Oh, Nicole, I can't read that.
Okay, I got Debbie down. That's a Debbie.
All right, guys, you can stop. Okay. So how did you feel while you were trying to write these sentences? Stressed out. How come? Why were you stressed out?
It's too early to be this stressed. Still waking up.
You didn't take any tips from your stress article earlier.
No, I didn't. My brain is-
So why do you feel stressed out? Anybody have thoughts?
You can't keep up.
You can't keep up, right?
You can, and it's still not good.
Doing the best you can, and it's still not good enough. What our kids feel every single day. How do you feel? How did you feel towards me while I was dictating the sentences?
Aggravated.
Aggravated. Mm-hmm. How else? And I'm mean today, aren't I? Yeah.
She's not this mean on a regular.
I'm actually very sweet most of the time. My husband might not say that. I don't know. Anybody else? Feelings towards me? Yeah.
I just gave up.
Or just feelings in general? You gave up. Why'd you give up?
I was getting nowhere, so I might as well just quit.
Mm-hmm. And so when our kiddos turn in papers that are half done, why do you think they do that? It's not because they don't want to finish it, because they can't. What strategies did you use to help you get through the simulation? Just kept going, is that what you said?
At first, I was trying to keep in the lines, and then I was just trying to keep up with the speed, and it was all crazy. And then the next time, I wasn't even thinking about the lines. I was just
As fast as you can, right? Because you know I'm just going to say that next one, and you got to keep going, right? And unfortunately, this is how our kids feel because it takes them a whole lot longer to write anything most of the time. Their handwriting is not good, most of these kids. And it's laborious and some of them painful because they write so hard and they hold so tightly to the pencil and it just takes them forever to do anything. And so when we just keep going, now you think you're going at a traditionally normal pace, but for them, it feels like that. It feels like, oh my gosh, I'm still on the first one and you're on the third or fourth one and I can't keep up, so I'm done. I give up. Then they get in trouble. Well, why aren't you doing your work? Oh, I'm not doing my work because I can't keep up, so what's the point? I'm going to get an F anyway, so why should I bother? Why should I make my hand hurt? Why should I make my brain hurt and tired so I can't do anything else the rest of the day? I'll just quit. So what would have helped you be more successful on that task? More time, very good. Anything else? A patient teacher, for sure, right? I wasn't being very patient. Anybody else? Yeah.
Was there a purpose for writing these sentences down? Did it have to be handwritten notes? Could it be modified?
Very true. Could it be modified? Is there a way that, they could type it or they could, do something else to show you that they have that knowledge of whatever it was you're doing, the grammar formation or whatever it was you were doing. Also, possibly repeating the sentence. Nobody really asks me in here to repeat it. Usually I get somebody that says, hey, say that again, and I'm like, I can't, sorry. But repeating the sentence would have probably been helpful, right? Chunking that last one instead of giving you, the whole thing at once. You can't keep that in your brain, right? Unfortunately, these kiddos with dyslexia have very short working memories. They can't keep a short sentence in their brain, much less, so that big long sentence to you felt like what our kids go through every day with a short sentence. They can't keep all those words in their brain, so if you don't tell them a few more times, they're not going to get it. They're not going to be able to remember it. All right, so go ahead and write on your reflections page there for a minute.
Was this for a spelling thing, or could it have been written on the board for them to copy?
It could have, yeah. I mean, I don't really know what it was for. It's just for you to feel how, if you're telling them, here, write this down, write this down, write this down. Lectures, note lectures, anything like that where they have to write listen and write at the same time. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys back these. They still have theirs. Yep, these are the new ones. You're welcome. The ones you already have, I'm giving back. Okay, I think I need one. Does everybody have one over here now that I just, of the half sheet I just gave you? All right. And you guys also have the one from earlier that says round robin reading. Okay. All right, so you guys can finish writing while I read this if you need to, and again, you can come back to that later. So in this simulation, you'll experience the impact that reading aloud has on people with dyslexia. Individuals with dyslexia often struggle with decoding individual words and need more processing time when trying to read continuous text. When asked to read aloud and they are struggling with reading some, if not several, of the words on the page, it can cause them to become self-conscious of what they sound like and their reading problems. This can cause intense anxiety and frustration. Therefore, when individuals with dyslexia are expected to read aloud, especially in front of their peers, they often find excuses to leave the room, have to go to the restroom, get a drink, need to go to the nurse's office, or other ways of avoiding being selected, such as being disruptive or claiming they forgot their glasses. Adults with dyslexia sometimes find themselves in situations where they are expected to read aloud and will often display the same behaviors of avoidance. All right, so don't peek at your paper yet. So I actually, where'd my ball go? Oh, here. I have this crazy little ball that my daughter was addicted to these claw machines for a while, so we have all these little balls. She's 15 now, she still likes them, but not like all the time like she used to, but this one I think is lacking air, but it'll work, has a cute little dog on it. Okay, so I'm actually going to throw this around the room, and when you get the ball, you're going to read a part of the article, okay? So, whoops, if I don't fall over first. Let me have Mary start at the top of that article, please.
Unfortunately, the word dyslexia has been used, abused, and misused throughout the years.
Oh, I'm just putting that in front of you so they can hear you.
Which has teachers, administrators, and school psychologists reluctant to use the word. But dyslexia does not have an agreed upon definition, and there are specific symptoms associated with dyslexia.
Nice reading. Okay. Let's have Bethany read the next part.
The bottom line is that it doesn't exist. No better.
Come on, speed it up. We got math to do still today. All right, John, just give me a ball. I'm going to go to somebody else. Let's try Susan. You have my name. That's awesome.
All right, so you want me to go over the sheet?
Yep, just start where she stopped.
No matter what name people give it, i.e. specific learning, disabilities, etc. In fact, according to Sally
Shaywitz,
2003, its prevalence is actually 1 in 5 children, which is 20%.
very good. All right. That was some awesome reading, Susan. Let's try. Let's try Lisa.
Dyslexia is the
Simplest.
thank you.
Hey, no help from the peanut gallery over there.
Simplest term.
All right. on, Lisa, you must not have done your homework last night. You didn't do your reading, did you? You're too busy doing principal stuff. All right. Actually, let's do, down there. Can't see your name.
Dyslexia, in the simplest terms, is a difficulty with phonological processing that makes it challenging to decode words, spell, and comprehend what has been read.
Wow, you must have done your homework last night. Good job. All right, let's try. Someone in the back row here. How about Tom?
Four.
Did you lose your place, Tom? Come on, aren't you paying attention?
Come on, I want to go to recess.
Yeah, no kidding. I think all of these people over here are going to have to stay in for recess. Sorry, because you didn't do your homework last night, but you guys did awesome over here. All right, that's enough torture. Okay. Oh, you want to read some more?
No,
we
Yeah,
can't.
they don't get recess.
Yeah, they don't get recess, I know. All right, so for those of you who had version 1 of the article, so there's 2 versions if you guys hadn't figured it out by now, which would be this group over here. How did you feel, or what did you think when the other group wasn't able to read aloud fluently?
We are so much better than that.
That's right. Anything else? Any other thoughts? You guys thought you were dumb? Okay.
We're slowing down our class.
Yes, they're slowing us down. We're gonna miss.
What is their issue? Why can't they keep up with us?
Exactly. Right? And you're gonna miss recess because they aren't going fast enough, right? For those of you who had version 2 of the article, which was the changed text, how did you feel when the other group was able to read fluently and you were not?
I was like, man, they're good at this.
Yeah, only the first and second one. I was like, wow.
I was like, how's she
I want to
figuring
see
that
that.
out? Where'd she get that from that?
And somebody said it made you feel dumb, right? Anything else?
We're missing something.
You're missing something, right? So again,
I don't want to see it.
our kids, our 4 or 5 kids with dyslexia, and well, in your guys' classes, you don't have that many. Our 20% kids with dyslexia in every class feel like this. Every time you do round robin reading, they feel like this because they can't keep up. They have no idea what's being read. They make mistakes. The other kids make fun of them. And it's just, again, a lot of these kids say school is torture all day, every day, because this is what they go through. Okay, so is everybody doing okay? Do we need to take a break? All right.
Need therapy?
Okay, so we are going to do another writing simulation. So in this simulation, participants experience, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't give you time to write. Let me give you a minute to write on your reflections journal, and then we'll do that. Okay, go ahead and keep writing if you want. I'm going to go ahead and read this. In this simulation, you will experience the impact limited spelling and word choice have on writing. Individuals with dyslexia often can think of good sentences to write, but in the process of writing, have to slow down to think about how to spell an individual word or words in the sentence, which may cause them to lose their thoughts about what they wanted their sentence to say. They often have to reread their sentence multiple times before they are able to complete the whole sentence. Difficulty with spelling may also cause them to change words they would really like to use. These challenges may impact their writing to such a degree that it results in a final product that is not truly reflective of their thoughts or intellect, and the composition may appear very disjointed. For example, the student may want to write a sentence about the Grand Canyon. A sentence they think of may be, the Grand Canyon is enormous. However, they may end up with a sentence such as, it is big. They may feel they cannot spell the words canyon or enormous, so use the words it and big instead to write their sentence. This simulation will give you the opportunity to experience how slowing down to think about spelling and word choice will greatly affect writing composition. So, you do get to use your dominant hand this time. So that's my gift to you today. But you're not gonna like this next part, so. Would you mind putting up that one just single page that I sent you with the writing instructions, please? So there are gonna be some writing instructions right there on the screen. And it changed the format a little bit, but so step one is to write a paragraph about what you did this morning. Oh, just if you could pull it back down so we can just see step one, that'd be awesome. The other way. Write a paragraph about what you did this morning. You have to handwrite it and cannot use a computer. Okay, so go ahead and do that step first. Just normal, just write a paragraph about what you did this morning. Okay, go ahead and stop. What were you thinking about while you were writing? Melissa?
About what I did this morning.
What you did this morning? Anybody else? Thinking about anything else? What?
Trying to figure out what to say.
Trying to figure out what to say, yeah. Like, how do I write this? How do I make it a good paragraph, right? Okay. How did you decide what to write? You don't remember what happened this morning?
No, I said not much happened this morning.
Oh, not much happened this morning, so you didn't have a lot of material to draw from, right? How did you think about what you wanted to write? Just what you did this morning, right? Right. Okay. Did you have to think about many of the mechanics of writing, like grammar, punctuation, spelling? Anybody have to do that? Not too much. If you did, how did it affect your writing? Make you a little bit more careful, I guess, to make sure you're writing it correctly, right? If you had to rate this on a level of difficulty, was this exercise easy, a little difficult, difficult, or very difficult? Easy. Easy? Everybody easy? Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do next. I'm going to have you write a paragraph about what you did yesterday. And obviously we're going to handwrite it because we don't have a computer. I need you to write the whole time. No giving up. Okay, you got to keep writing for the whole time that we're writing. If you can pull that up for me, thank you. So you cannot use the following words: A and B for have, in, of, that, the, to. And while spelling the words, you must substitute a T for every time you would use the letter B, an A for every time you would use the letter O. Please do not write the words with the correct spelling and then cross out the B or O and put in the T or A. Please think about the spelling as you write the words and make the substitutions as you are writing, okay? So, I'm gonna go ahead and start. You're gonna have to refer up there for your rules that you need to write this. Write what you did yesterday. Some of you giving up out there, I think. You're not supposed to give up. All right. I don't know what that is.
Is the bell.
All right, that's a pretty bell. So what were you thinking about while you were writing? The rules, right? Totally different than the last time. You weren't thinking about what you did yesterday. You're thinking about the rules. Anybody else? What were you thinking about? Anything besides the rules?
Paying attention what letter not to use and put the proper letter in there.
Very good. You're trying to figure out which letter to use, which letter not to use. Were you thinking about, what's that?
How to avoid it.
How to avoid it. Were you thinking about when you could go out for recess, when lunch was, right? All right, how did you decide what to write?
Word avoidance.
Avoidance? So you were trying to decide, you're shaking your head over there, Kendra?
I was saying, yeah, I took out words and changed what I was going to write based on.
Change what you're gonna write based on that, right? This is what our kids do. They change what they write because they can't spell worth a darn, usually. They're really bad at grammar. They're really bad at punctuation, so they're gonna make things as simple as possible, even though intellectually they're capable of so much better writing. But when they're afraid that they're gonna get a paper sent back with bleeding paper, you know, that you've written red all over their mistakes, they're not gonna write what they can write. You're not gonna see their intelligence. You're gonna see their effort to follow the rules and do the best they can to spell those words the best they can and give you the best thing that they think they can give you that's not going to get written red all over, instead of what they could really give you, which these kids can tell amazing stories, but they can't write them down. They're afraid to. How did you decide what to write? Oh, we already talked about that. Did you have to think about many of the mechanics of writing while you were writing?
A little bit, but maybe it was just me. I found that it was easier. It got easier to write the longer that I was writing.
Yeah, your brain kind of adjusted to it and clicked around it, yeah.
I just wrote simpler.
You just wrote simpler, that's right. That's exactly what our kids do. Anybody else have to think about the mechanics of writing a lot? And so how did that affect your writing? wrote simpler, right? That's pretty much the gist, yeah.
It's not just letters and words that they're thinking about, it's punctuation.
Yeah.
And that's something I just realized I wasn't even thinking about punctuation, and that's something teachers would count on for.
Yeah, exactly. These kids work so hard. They work 3 to 5 times harder and longer than anybody else just to do this sort of adequate, potentially not adequate work. And they have to work so hard to keep all of that in their brain, like just what they want to write. There's no way, there's no room in there left for punctuation and grammar and spelling and all of those things that, you know, a lot of us take for granted. It's just so easy to sit down and write something. For these kids, it's not. It's very difficult. If you had to rate this on a level of difficulty, was it easy, a little difficult, or very difficult? Very difficult, yeah. As compared to our one we just did, right? Because it's easy for us. It comes automatically. Nothing is automatic to these kids, nothing. So how did you feel while you were trying to write the first paragraph? Any feelings about it? Yeah, just thinking about your morning, probably kind of neutral, right? How did you feel while you were trying to write the second paragraph? So how did that make you feel?
Very cautious of what I put down.
Yes, very cautious, maybe scared. I'm not going to do this right, right? What other feelings? Frustration, for sure, right? Anybody else?
Worried I was doing it wrong.
Worried, anxious, right? Yep, so again, fear, worry, frustration. This is how our kids feel all day, every day, all day, every day. That's what I want you guys to take away today from this simulation. All day, every day, they feel like this. Did you feel the second paragraph was a true reflection of your abilities and intelligence? No, it couldn't be, right? So if a teacher looked at that, they'd go, oh my gosh, this kid must be stupid, right? Not that we want to say that about our kids, but you know, you all kind of have that, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this kid, right? There's nothing wrong with them, except they can't spell very well, and they can't remember their punctuation, but they can tell you a whole big long story with big words that they know, and you would go, wow, that kid's really smart, and then they go write it down, maybe not, right? What happened? For the second paragraph, how would you feel if you had to either read this page to the class or exchange papers for another participant to read it? Absolutely horrified, right? Horrified. Would you want anybody else to see that? No. Would you, what, go ahead.
I knew there was stuff wrong with it, but I was trying to follow your rules that I wasn't allowed to fix it.
Yes, right, yeah. So, you know, what happens to these kids when we exchange papers and the straight A student has to grade their paper and their paper looks like that? You know, how humiliated must they feel every single time you do that? So, and again, you know, I'm going to be talking a lot today about these are things that are really harmful to these students. And I also know that well-meaning teachers do them all the time. And so try not to feel bad, try not to beat yourself up because you didn't know. And when you know better, you do better. Because none of us were taught about this. None of us. Unfortunately, in school, we're taught about this. So, you know, and I always say, because actually, I didn't tell you guys this earlier, but after I got into all this and started getting trained in dyslexia, I realized, oh my gosh, my daughter has dyslexia. It's not severe, but like all of the things that they were telling me, these are the signs, this is what happens. Oh my gosh, this is my daughter. So actually after I got trained to be tested, I came home and I gave her a couple things and I was like, oh my gosh, she does. And so I got her tested. And I'm gonna tell you, I have been that parent. I've been that parent that's yelled at her about, why can't you, tell time on that clock? I get emotional about it now. Why can't you, and my other daughter actually, we've since found out has dyscalculia, which is the math part of dyslexia. And, why can't you do that problem? Why can't you remember those steps? Why can't you remember your math facts? I've been there, I've done that as a parent. And so, you know, I'm not a classroom teacher, so in speech therapy, I don't do a whole lot of what you guys do in the classroom, but I do know that I missed all of this. You know, I would say probably 80 to 90% of the kids in a speech caseload probably have dyslexia based on what I know now. I didn't know that. And I wasn't doing the things that I should have been doing to help those kids. But again, when you know better, you do better. So don't think, hopefully I don't want you to think that I'm like beating up on you or anything, you know, for, oh my gosh, you've been terrible to these kids. Not at all. You did what you thought was best. Now you're gonna have new information. So, but there's gonna be a lot of that. Don't, you know, don't give them bleeding papers. Don't pass papers down the road. Don't exchange papers, because it is harmful to these kids and we don't realize that we're harming them, but we are. All right, so go ahead and write in your journal on that one, and then we have one more simulation. So if you guys are all good to go, we'll do this last simulation, then we'll take a little bit of a break, bathroom break, stretch break before I start into the next part. I'm going to read you this last one. If you have any more thoughts to write, go ahead and write those down. So in this simulation, participants experience difficulty in processing new information. Individuals with dyslexia often need more time to process information. This is especially true when being presented with new information. They have the ability to process information, but may need the information presented in smaller bits with time to process. Individuals with dyslexia can feel new information is presented too quickly for them to adequately process and understand. For participants to get a sense of what it may feel like to have information presented too fast for processing and understanding, the speaker in the simulation is intentionally speaking very quickly and going through the slides of the PowerPoint presentation rapidly. So we are actually going to put on a video, if you could get that ready for me, please. So you're actually going to see a lady up here presenting a PowerPoint presentation. You're probably not going to be able to see the PowerPoint very well. However, it's really not going to matter. So just go ahead and watch it and listen, and I will be giving you a quiz afterwards. Okay? It means with language.
What dyslexia is not is just as important about what dyslexia is. It's not caused by poor eyesight or hearing problems. It's not seeing letters or words backwards. It's not a developmental disability. It's not acquired alexia, aphasia, or anomia. Those are all caused by head injuries. Sometimes they'll be called acquired dyslexia, but it's not the greatest term for that. It's not a degenerative disease because it doesn't get any worse over time, and it's actually not even a disease. It's not lack of educational opportunity. People with dyslexia have had to have had the opportunity to learn in an educational environment to be diagnosed with dyslexia, and it's not a result of lack of laziness or effort put out by the part of the student. So those are the things that it is not. Let's look at what dyslexia really is. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurological in origin, meaning it's based in the brain. It's characterized by difficulties with accurate and or fluent word recognition or poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of the language, which is the sound system of our language, and it's often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities, meaning they have average to above average intelligence, and they've had the opportunity for effective classroom instruction. The secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experiences that can impede growth of vocabulary and background knowledge because they aren't reading as much as their peers. So this is a definition adopted by the International Dyslexia Association and the National Institute for Child Health and Human Development. Learning in the brain. Over time, the brain learns because we have plasticity in our brain, meaning that our brain has the ability to learn new things by making new neural connections. And that happens based on new experiences. But it has to have a lot of repetition for the brain to actually learn it and be able to utilize that information later. So we often will talk about being able to build a muscle. You have to do something repetitiously over time for that muscle to build. And that's true about how the brain learns. It has to do something repetitiously over time for it to actually learn it. There's a lot of technology that has helped with the research of what dyslexia is. We've had EEGs, PET scans, MEG scans, MSIs, and fMRIs. fMRIs are the most commonly used type of technology that's out there for learning about dyslexia. The images that they get from an fMRI is what somebody's doing while they're actually performing a task, and it's showing the difference in activity between the frontal, temporal, parietal, and occipital lobes, and also from left to right. Individuals with dyslexia are using those areas different than people without dyslexia. It provides, these scans are helping provide scientific research that dyslexia is neurobiological units based in the brain, and they can show that by the differences in those lobes and in that left-right hemisphere stuff. So this type of research provides evidence that scientific evidence that dyslexia is neurobiological. It's also genetic and lifelong. A child has it most likely a parent or a grandparent or aunt or uncle. Somebody in the family has had troubles with learning to read. That's often how a parent is identified, is that the child is diagnosed. The parent can have it mild and a child have it severe, or vice versa. And often siblings can have it within a family, and it may be difficult to see. It's also lifelong. 74% of poor readers in 3rd grade remain poor readers in the 9th grade. Often they can't read well into adulthood. That's if they haven't had proper remediation. So let's look at some of the symptoms. And all symptoms range on a spectrum of mild, moderate, severe to profound. Every symptom does an individual with dyslexia have, and they can have various symptoms with various degree of difficulty. So obviously difficulty learning to read and spell are two of the common ones. They have difficulty with phonological awareness, which is difficulty identifying and generating rhyming words or counting syllables within words. They have difficulty with phonemic awareness, which is difficulty with hearing and manipulating sounds in words, and they have auditory discrimination problems. Or they may have auditory discrimination problems. That's difficulty distinguishing sounds in words. Some symptoms continued. They misread or omit those small words, the ups, ands, buts, for, ins, of. They stumble through longer words. They have poor reading comprehension during oral and silent reading, and they have slow, laborious oral reading. They also have difficulty learning the sounds of letters. Usually it's not all the letters, but a handful of the letters. Difficulty remembering names and or shapes of letters.
All right, so we're not going to watch that whole thing because it's like 8 minutes long, and I'm going to tell you a lot of that stuff when I talk in a little bit, only a little bit slower. So I'm actually going to hand out a quiz on this information. So I need you to do the best you can. I hope you studied last night because, you know, this quiz is like 50% of your grade. So good luck.
Oh no. Oh no.
Everybody get one? Oh, yes, sorry, go ahead and start. Oh, yes, oh, no, I think we had some extras over here, probably. Did you guys have any extras? Thank you.
There they are.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No.
Oh, no cheating,
I
no
think
cheating.
it's cheating. It's not a real thing.
You need to go to the principal's office.
She needs to go talk to himself.
Are you the principal?
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious.
What?
Superintendent's office. You need to go see Nicole.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wait, the tattletale gets to go to the office too, right? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah. We teach against
All right, pencils down, you're done. So I hope you all did well and you all got A's on that test, right? Okay, so how are you feeling during the PowerPoint presentation?
Trouble keeping up.
Trouble keeping up, why?
Talking really fast.
She was talking really fast, okay?
Did she do that on purpose?
She did do that on purpose, yes, because again, for a typical learner, if we talked at a normal rate of speed, you guys wouldn't have any trouble with it, so yeah.
Some of the terms that she used, I was not able to have the time to see them, process them.
Right, you couldn't really process it.
With the definition she gave.
And not intentionally, but you know, it kind of also gives you an idea of kids with visual disabilities because you can't really read that very well, right? Anything else about how you felt towards the presenter? Or did you have any feelings towards her? Mad, frustrated? Anything like that?
I was thinking she wasn't very good presenter.
Okay, very good. She wasn't very good, right? You stink. Slow down. Okay. Right, yeah.
I mean, I thought the information was extremely interesting, but pulling the audience.
Right, she wasn't really, yeah, just spitting out information, not really connecting, yeah.
Not linking to old knowledge, perhaps.
Yes, not linking to old knowledge, very good. So she was just presenting a whole bunch of new stuff all at once, really fast, right? How are you feeling while you were trying to complete the quiz? You felt great? Because you were cheating, right?
I'm not a cheater, guys.
I felt disrupted by them.
Oh, you did. They were disrupting you. Huh. Okay, so we're all laughing about this, right? But do you know what happens to our kids when they didn't get the information because they couldn't read it, or they couldn't understand it, or they couldn't process it? What do? They cheat. We're forcing them to cheat. It's not their fault. We didn't give them the information in the right way so that they could understand it and remember it. They don't want to cheat. Who wants to cheat? They want to do well on their own. Everybody wants to do well, right? But if I can't because I didn't understand it and I wasn't given the right instruction the way I could learn it, what do I have left? I'm going to cheat. Or they act up, right? And disrupt everybody else in the class because they're like, I can't do this, so. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit later, but, you know, like we talked about that round robin reading or this or anything that, you know, they're struggling with. Like, you know, one of the biggest fears that we all have is public humiliation. You know, we don't want people to see that we're not good at something. And so these kids go to school every day and face that because, oh, you have to read a lot in class. I know you're a terrible reader, but you're going to do it anyway. You have to do a spelling bee. I know you're a terrible speller, but you have to do it anyway. You have to write your paper and turn it in, and I'm going to put all these red marks on it and hand it all the way down the row or pass it to the other person, you know, the other kid to grade. And so every day these kids feel public humiliation all day long. And, you know, why wouldn't I punch Johnny and get to go to the office and see, you know, my wonderful principal instead of having to read out loud? Why wouldn't I? Because that's better than my friends knowing that I can't read and that I'm stupid. And a lot of times it also ends up in these kids not doing their work because they'd rather be lazy than stupid. Because I'm going to work 3 to 5 times harder and longer than any other kid, and I'm still going to get enough. So what exactly is the point? I'd just rather not turn it in, because you know what? When I don't turn it in, I'm cool. All the other kids think I'm cool, because I didn't turn my paper in. You didn't do your work, it's so cool. But if I worked 5 hours on it and I turned it in and I got an F, that's not so cool, right? And that's all I care about at that age. I mean, they want to do well, but they can't. So I may as well look cool instead of looking stupid, right? So they end up getting labeled lazy. They end up getting labeled as bad kids. And so then what do? Well, I'm already a bad kid, so why does it matter? May as well just keep being a bad kid, because that's what they think about me anyway. So how, I didn't even give you guys all the quiz. There's actually supposed to be 10 questions. How do you think you would have felt by the end if you had to complete the entire quiz? Really dumb. Okay, how else? What'd you say over here?
I said solid B.
Solid B. Anybody else? How about your brain? Exhausted? Mentally fatigued? Right? How hard did you have to work to try to remember all of that? That's what these kids feel like every day. There's actually new research out that shows that they use 5 times more brain area than typical learners. 5 times more brain area. No wonder they're exhausted. You know, no wonder that they can't, by the end of the day, they're done, they've had it, they can't do anything else. And then they have to go home and do 5 hours of homework. So, for, you know, these older kids, they have it takes them forever to do all that work that they get in every single class. And so what do they have to look forward to? They have torture all day. They go home, they have more torture. It's what they call it. And a lot of them, you know, they really live for their sports or their arts or their music. A lot of these kids have huge talents in a lot of these areas. But what happens to them is either the school or their parents say, oh, you have enough. Sorry, you can't go to soccer tonight. You can't go to a music lesson. I had one parent say that she took away all 3 of her kids' musical instruments. Oh, you can't play your musical instrument because you got an F. That's the only thing they're good at. It's the only thing they love. And so what are we doing? We're taking away the only time they feel successful. We're making them go through torture all day, more torture when they come home, and then we took away the only thing that they love. What's the point anymore? Why do these kids, you know, why do they even want to try? And then, this is my opinion, but, you know, you see all this on TV about Indiana has the highest rate of teenagers contemplating suicide. It's 1 in 5. Guess what the dyslexia rate is? 1 in 5. Do the math, you know. And I'm sure, you know, there are kids that contemplate suicide that don't have dyslexia. But I do know that school failure very much contributes to that. And if you think about what these kids go through every day, and then they get their favorite thing, the only thing they live for, taken away, what do you want to live for anymore? School's terrible. I'm stupid. I can't do anything. Now I can't even do what I'm good at, so why should I bother? And then, you know, they self-medicate and they do all of these other things because they end up with anxiety and depression, and I mean, it's just a continuous cycle. So if we can help these kids when they're little, I mean, we can help them later, but if we can help them when they're little, we're gonna be able to stop that cycle in a lot of these kids. So that's my mission that God has me on. Okay, so besides the PowerPoint presentation being presented, how do you think you would feel by the end of a class where you're being presented a lot of new information because the class is starting a new chapter? So hold 45 minutes of that. All new information, and I know she was talking fast, but as a typical learner, you know, you were processing that basically like a person with a learning disability would process it. How would you feel by the end of that class? Overwhelmed. How else? You give up? Defeated. Exhausted, right? Besides the PowerPoint presentation being presented at a much slower pace, what other ideas do you have about what could be done differently? I got to turn my page. To assist a student with accessing and acquiring new information. Lecture notes, very good. Give them the notes ahead of time, right? What else? Less material and more time to process, very good. Visuals, very good. Other things? Hands-on learning's great, right? And another thing that we're going to talk about later is allowing them to record lectures, so they're not trying to take notes, and so they can go home and listen to the lecture again and not try to decipher their notes that they can't read anyway. Information provided in multiple formats, you guys kind of said that with the visuals, the hands-on, all of that. All right, so that is the end of our simulation. So let's go ahead and take, if we can get done in about 5 minutes, 10 at the most, break, stretch, go to the bathroom, do all that good stuff. When we come back, we'll do the first part of my talk, and then we'll do the second part after lunch. Thank you guys all, you're so attentive.